Hello and welcome to another episode of the Socially Numb Podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahey. Today, again, using the mobile recorder. I'm holding back my thoughts on it for right now. I'm going to go ahead and put it through a few more tests. Like I said, I've been doing some events and stuff, covering it with my media company, and going through, I haven't had enough of a variety in the tests themselves, but it's kept me pretty busy. And so what I'm doing now is I'm hoping to expand and do some other things, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to get the handy recorder in the first place, so that if I need to mic some people up for certain events, if someone's giving a speech, I can just go ahead and throw this on there and keep taking video. And what I've done, so I basically have, and this is with Leahey Media, so you know, because that's the one who sponsors the podcast and everything. I am going through, and I've been working on doing a little bit of 4K video. I've been putting up old projects and stuff on YouTube, and I've been talking about them on the podcast. And I'm going to go ahead and get back into that over the summer here, as I'm working on some new and exciting projects. I'm going to throw some of my old ones back up, and I've talked about some videos I've done with my brother, and also some volunteer work that I've done in the past. So those will keep coming, but for right now, I've been looking into 4K video. I talked about the Panasonic GH4, great camera, and my problem with it is that it doesn't have in-body stabilization. Some of the lenses you can get have it, but for video, if you're going to run and gun, what you basically need is a thing called a gimbal. And what that is, it's a stabilizer that goes around the camera, and it's mechanized. So it has machine instincts that are run usually by AI, artificial intelligence, a little bit of programming, depending on which one you get. And it goes around the camera, or some of them are in the handle form, where you attach your camera, like the tripod part at the bottom, to a handle, and then that handle goes ahead and it smooths your movement. And with that smoothing, you can go ahead and walk around, and it will look like it's on a rail, and that's the purpose of it. So you can go ahead and expand. So as I'm doing some projects, and I'm looking at different parks and things in our area just to do a little bit of infomercials. And with those, what I do is normally, if I have my GH4, if I'm going to do it in 4K, because nature videos are usually the ones that go ahead and get in the higher definition first, because those are the ones where people have the bigger equipment. They can set it down. They don't have to be as mobile. If you watch an actual movie from Hollywood, there are a lot of hand movements, a lot of steady cams, and things like that that are on the go. What movie did I watch recently? I watched Captain America: Winter Soldier. A lot of the fight scenes were handheld video. You could tell by the shaking and everything when they're running and gunning to get around, to give it that chaotic feel. And whenever new equipment comes out, like when 4K video comes out, even though technology has increased tenfold over the past 10 years, they're still carrying around bigger cameras. Now, when they carry around the bigger cameras, you're going to go ahead and it's going to be more of a burden on the staff who are carrying big equipment pieces onto big Hollywood production sets. So normally what happens is they get scaled down. A lot of Hollywood uses like the newer technology, but the first releases you see are people who are going to sites, landscapes, wherever, nature's parks, and then they record like the high definition videos of nature. Maybe they're going to like some kind of safari zoo, and they're filming giraffes running around. And that's where you're going to go ahead and get your best quality on these huge, like the huge IMAX reels, before movies started to really come out on them. Because even a lot of movies now don't even come out on them just because of the equipment. It's hard to carry around huge cameras that are monstrosities. But you can go ahead and throw it on the back of a truck, drive around to a different location, and there you go. You have yourself great high definition video for certain people. You have it right there for the nature lovers, and you can go ahead and use it for, like, PBS can use it for their broadcasts, public broadcasting stuff that they do. And you just have more of a direct quality line over that medium. So that's what I'm using mine for right now, even though I'm a much smaller production company and I'm using it kind of just to get some feels, going to some parks and filming in 4K before I would take it to clients and say, okay, I'm ready to go in 4K. Now, instead of going ahead and purchasing a gimbal for the GH4, I might have mentioned it before, I'm in talks with maybe Panasonic sponsoring the show, maybe get a GH5, which has in-body stabilization, where the GH4 would then be my backup cam. I can go ahead and set that on a tripod somewhere if I'm filming like a wedding, per se. I have the one camera, the GH4, on a tripod watching the stage, and I can go ahead and walk around with the GH5. Even with the in-body stabilization, it's probably better to go ahead and get a gimbal because that's going to go ahead and give you the utmost, smoothest movements. So as you're walking around, and so if I need to pan, so if I'm doing a wedding, there's wedding dress shots that I need, shoes that I need, shots of girls getting ready. I need to go ahead and be able to pan the video around that, and if I don't have the smooth movements, it's going to look all jaggedy. I don't want it to look like Blair Witch Project. I want it to be more of a production, and so that's what the gimbal is used for. Now, before I went ahead and get on the full scale of that, I did have some events come up, and I wanted to go ahead and test that more handheld feel, and that's what this week's podcast is about. So when I went to Carolina Rebellion, was the last weekend already, and I saw a lot of people get in. They wouldn't let me bring in my two-piece camera, of course not, because that's a little bit too high of quality. But I saw a lot of people that had GoPro cameras, and the newest GoPro camera has 4K capability. So I thought, you know what, maybe it is time, because I could get a GoPro for about the price that I would get a new lens. Not even a high quality, like the highest quality lens for my camera, but for video you really don't need too many lenses. That's more for photography. You get a good wide lens and you have a controlled environment like weddings to videotape, and that's really all you have to worry about, is getting the shots and the camera placement, which most places, if you're at a church, if you're at a winery, if you're at so I don't even know where other people get married, if you're at like an outdoor venue, you're going to have a controlled environment where you can go ahead and set your camera up on a tripod and walk around and get handheld shots for the rest. You can really do it in two camera shots. If you wanted, if you wanted to really expand it, you could do 3. One on each side, maybe a closer up. I guess you could do 4. Actually, it's unlimited how many cameras you could have. You're just going to have to cut more film together and let some of them run. So if I wanted a close-up shot, I could have a lens set up to do that somewhere near the back, somewhere near the front on a tripod. I have another one running, like watching like a wide angle view. But the tricky part is, to be honest, once you get so many cameras, is to keep the cameras out of the shot, because you don't want to see other cameras, like you don't want people to see. And that's the annoying part if you go to bigger events where people think that they need to record the event on their cell phone, like a concert, then you're filming and someone's holding up their cell phone and they're filming their own shot. And it doesn't make sense. It's weird that people do that. And even I was guilty on Carolina Rebellion. I have some videos. I actually never even posted them on social media yet, but I have some videos of the concert, just short little clips that, yeah, if someone was interested in the show, they could go ahead and just find the full quality video online. And I haven't had time. I know I said I'd watch the show and get back and give some other thoughts, but I haven't had time to do that yet. So that will be coming on a later podcast if and when I have anything else to add to that. But back to the GoPro. So the GoPro is so small and easy to carry around that it's a good second cam for right now if I'm doing small shoots. I only need one camera I could set up. Like, let's say I'm doing an interview. So I have the one camera. That's my main camera. I go ahead, I take the handy recorder, plug 2 mics into it, and boom, I'm getting extra audio on top of my camera that might just have a shotgun mic on top. Then, if I wanted extra shots, if I had another camera, then I'm carrying it, and it's going to be big and it's going to be intrusive. So I thought, if I get a GoPro to try, then I can have it, and it's a lot smaller, and I can have it either stationary somewhere else, where it's not like in their line of view, so they're not looking at both cameras kind of going back and forth. I know you've seen people do that on the news. They're talking to one camera, they turn their head for dramatic effect, and then the camera switches. Well, that's really not the look we'd go for in an interview. It's not a newscast, so then I would have the second camera to get just an extra feel, an extra perspective. And so with that, go ahead and set that up. So using the GoPro, it's a little bit less intrusive and it's smaller. And now they do 4K. Now I looked at some videos online, and it's hard to tell because whenever you get to 4K, a lot of monitors don't even really support 4K. My computer hums every time I play a 4K video, even if it's from the GoPro that I've just got to test. So I have a GoPro, I have my GH4, my computer barely plays 4K, my television barely plays 4K, and it's a 4K television. You have to have it in a certain format. Television's not broadcast in 4K. So it's kind of like future-proofing your content. Realistically, the only events that you would probably want in 4K right now would be like a wedding or something that you want to go ahead and get the best quality. Maybe if it's like a once-in-a-lifetime interview, once-in-a-lifetime speaker at an event that you're like, okay, this is something that we're going to use for marketing for our company for years to come, and I want 4K video. Other than that, if you're just putting a YouTube video up for promotion that you're running for 6 months, there's no point in rushing to get that in 4K because less people are even going to watch it in 4K. You're better just to do it in full high definition. And then you can do some other cool things. Like right now, 4K cameras at the lower end. I mean, I'm talking about like less than like high Hollywood production, because the GH4 gives you that top-notch quality. You need different frame rates. You're not going to be able to do slow-mo if you're doing like super into shots, maybe like impact shots or anything like that. You're better just doing a high definition, and the GH4 can handle that, and the GoPro can handle that too. Their 1080p is very good. So actually any camera that does 4K, the 1080p is going to be better just because it downsamples it and gets it just that sharper quality. And that's what you're looking for when you're doing video. So I went ahead and I got the GoPro. And I also looked into getting a gimbal. Well, I went ahead and I got the GoPro Karma stabilizer, which is their grip. It's made by GoPro. It's supposed to be able to be picked up and carried with it. It's pretty good piece of equipment. So I read some negative reviews on it, and a lot of these, let's be honest, they don't work. Some people were asking if they work underwater. They do not work underwater because it's a stabilizer that has, like I said, it's mechanized. It has a machine. So there are parts that move, and there's machines inside. Yes, they could go ahead and put water sealing on it, but it's still going to move. So those moving parts are going to rust or whatever, because you can't protect everything. You might be able to put a sleeve on it, but even then, if you're underwater, you don't need that. The underwater moves you slower, so that you don't need the extra stabilization. If you're out and about and gravity's and you're running or you're taking steps, yes, you need it for sure. And of course, you need to be self-conscious too. You can't run around all crazy and expect the video to be stable. Like, oh, I was running full sprints, jumping and climbing, and the video doesn't turn out to be as best as I thought. Yeah, it's going to take something with the stabilizer. Now that you can go ahead and with theirs, you're supposed to be able to grip the stabilizer onto chest equipment, maybe like your helmet or whatever. There are some pieces in it. I haven't used a previous GoPro. I've seen people use them. I just haven't done any action shots or anything. But you have a camera that's built for that, so you can go ahead and use a stabilizer. Now, they did say that the stabilizer isn't going to keep its perspective currently whenever you're driving or riding. That was when it first came out. There has been an upgrade. Mine upgraded whenever I got it. Now, the pros for it, very easy to use. I click it in, and the camera goes with it. And this is a review of both pieces together, because to me, if you're going to get a GoPro, get both pieces. Get the stabilizer. It doesn't matter if it's the GoPro standard Karma stabilizer, because it's going to be like, what did it end up being, like $500 something, $600. I had some coupons and stuff too to get them on sale, so it might be a little bit more if you're going brand new. I can't remember how much I paid total for the package, but you might be able to get a drone with a stabilizer and that, but I don't know if it has the grip, like the Karma grip, for like a grand. But I haven't tested that yet because it doesn't have a follow me function. That would be the third. That'd be the holy grail of the GoPro. If they had their cameras on a drone that followed you around as you walked at like a certain height, so you could set it up so that it's like 20, 50 feet in the air, and it followed you around. Because if you were filming a wedding, to have a drone film the wedding would be awesome. Or even like a sporting event, you have it fly around before the game starts, because you don't want to risk it. A drone, anything could happen. They're not like perfect pieces of technology. You don't want it to like fly off or go ahead and crash and hurt someone. So that's what I would use it for, the extra extension. But the stabilizer itself, I just got the handheld one instead of the drone, and I got the GoPro Hero 5, I think, the bigger one, because it has some voice controls, it has some other things, and it fits perfect into the Karma grip. I know the Session one's like a little smaller, and I think it has the same camera in it, just a little bit. It's like one button to turn on, one button to go. I wasn't sure how that fit in the Karma grip. I mean, I guess it would. I don't know, I'd have to look at it, but I figured whatever, I'll go with their top of the line just to see what kind of results I get with it. Now, if there is a firmware upgrade that allows you to mount it to cars, what I did see was, all right, so I use it in the car. I set it up on the dash upon getting it, and I can do another test in a video here if people are interested. And it went ahead and it calibrated perfectly. Like, it worked. Now, I didn't drive too far, because when it came, I think the Zoom, one of my things I got came with a 2 gigabyte card. And whenever you throw that in the GoPro at 4K, you only get 4 minutes of coverage. So that was as long as my test. That's all the longer that it recorded on the GoPro. Now, I did see someone went ahead and did the same thing on YouTube before I got it. I wanted to see what results it got, and it was very good, high-quality video. But they had taped it onto, or tied it down onto their motorcycle. And whenever you're driving a motorcycle compared to a car, which is where I think the problem is, you have to physically lean into your turn, so the bike is actually tilting the GoPro way to the side. And after a while, it lost its perspective, like on what was the horizon. I think from the actually physically being turned on the bike itself, like it was being tilted toward the ground, the end of the camera. If you search online, I can't remember what the video is, but if you search, you could probably find it. The guy rides it on a motorcycle. And I think in a car, I don't think you would have that problem. GoPro said that they weren't supporting fast speeds currently with their stabilizer, but I think a firmware upgrade could fix that. And maybe they just weren't expecting people to go ahead and like actually strap it onto a motorcycle, because it is a high-tech piece of equipment. You don't want it to fall off and break, because that would hurt your investment. So that's why the Karma came with a good case, though. But that's one of the things that I was worried about, it being so small. I plan on keeping mine in the Karma 99% of the time. I mean, the only other thing would be is if I took it out. I would like to see, it is waterproof. I would like to take it to the beach, maybe to do some events, some type of like swimming, snorkeling, something like that, to really see how it holds up underwater. And if it breaks, I'm pretty sure they have a guarantee. I don't know what the days are, how long it works for, but it does come with a waterproof seal. You have to pop one of them off to use it with the Karma stabilizer. So be ready for that. That's the only headache that I have right now, is that if I pop that off, I have to keep it with the case. So when I do take it out of the Karma stabilizer, I have to find that waterproof piece if I was going to go ahead and throw it in a different grip that might float. So that would be the other option. So you would really need two if you wanted it for all around everything. Get the stabilizer for anything that's on ground, and then you can get some body mount. It comes with some mounts too, like if you wanted to mount it to a helmet. If you were really worried about that, you'd lose some of the stabilization. But again, if you want action shots, that might not matter too much to your audience. And then for water, they have grips that are supposed to float. So it's kind of like a grip that you would hold underwater. And the underwater, you move slower underwater, so it kind of stabilizes it yourself. It's still up to you. You can't like make jagged movements, or if you drop the GoPro, but it should work enough for underwater video. The only problem that I foresee having is like the light. If the water's not very clear, you're going to have limited light exposure underneath the water, and that's going to hurt your video. But I haven't tested that yet. I've only tested handheld shots, and so far their AI inside their gimbal has worked really well. It's smoothed out. It tracks people. I think there's a setting you can set it on. So like if I was going ahead and tracking someone as they're walking, the gimbal does that. Now, it's not exaggerated. There is no big piece of movement that happens. Like there's not one big jump to show you that like, okay, it's tracking someone, it's going to go ahead and jump with them. That doesn't happen. It kind of smooths. So if they move fast, they might jump to one side of the video, and then the gimbal would slowly turn and correct itself to face them. It gives a pretty cool effect, very nice smoothing. And like I said, it's an effect that you probably want if you're trying to take amateur videos at home, even of your family. If you have kids running around, you don't want it to be all juddery because they're running around uncontrollably. I did take it to test out at like certain areas, parks and things, and I did get some people asking about it because they thought it was pretty cool, and I got some good footage there, climbing up and trying to do like different park things like going down a slide and stuff like that, and it worked pretty well. Again, like the accelerated movement, it never really jarred my video. I think it's built up for small little bursts like that, maybe people skateboarding is what my idea was, because I didn't take it to the skate park yet, but I feel like that would be something that would be cool. Now with the Karma grip, you do have to kind of hold it either flat or at a 45-degree angle for it to work. How would that go on a body cam? I don't know. If you're skateboarding and you fall forward, I'd imagine it's pretty much going to get hit on the ground and probably have a good chance of breaking. Like I don't understand. Like I don't know what you would do. You'd have to train yourself to fall backwards, which is what you normally don't want to do. So in action sports, I don't know how you would do it in that, but just walking around, maybe using the GoPro itself on like a head mount is enough for an action video. Like I said, the movement itself is going to be controlled based on your body, which is going to stabilize it a good bit. Other than you walking around, especially if you're on a skateboard, you're not going to have the up and down movements of walking because you're on a plane and you're kind of just skating right along. So that would take care of it. Same if you're on a bike. So the stabilization on some elements really go ahead and stabilize themselves. But like I said, if you have anything where you want to stabilize if you're walking around, the Karma grip has been awesome. I did have one issue where I went to turn it on and it said that the battery was dead. And then I checked and the battery worked. Battery had like almost full power. And then it made it look like the GoPro was dead battery. Well, when I took the GoPro out of the Karma stabilizer, which, like I said, if I don't have that extra piece, if I'm walking around, then the ports are exposed, which you don't want, because what if you splash water, it starts raining, that gets wet, that pretty much kills it because it's such a small device, and the waterproof housing needs that on there, and the Karma grip doesn't give you any place. That was the one thing I wish it had, and maybe it does. I haven't looked too close, but I wish it had a storage compartment that you could clip open on the stabilizer grip that would let you store that waterproof housing. Because then if like this happened where it said that, I could go ahead and pop that off. Now, the disconnect error, back to that, it did say that it was out of battery. I took it out. The battery on the GoPro was 100%. What happened, or how I got it to actually fix, was I had to go in and actually physically take the battery out of the GoPro. When I took it out and put it back in, that's all I did. I made sure it was like clean. There was no sand or dust in it from the park, and there wasn't really. I mean, the Karma stabilizer keeps it pretty clean. What I did was I threw it in my pocket so that the stabilizer, it was like khakis, cargo short pocket, so that it was able to almost lay flat as I walked, and I had it off so it wasn't like jingling around. But as soon as I popped the battery out and put it back in, everything booted up and everything was fine. So I'm not sure what the problem was, but it was able to be fixed pretty quickly. The only thing was, like, it was a pain in the ass that I missed a shot I wanted to get, because when you're doing action, like walking around, you don't want the equipment to fail. And I don't know, hopefully it doesn't happen again. But like I said, both things were charged. I don't know what charge I get. I haven't put it through the test yet, because what I did was I did some shots. immediately went in and transferred them to my computer. So I transferred them onto my computer so that I had the shots ready to go for whatever I needed to do if I was going to do editing. One negative I did see that I hadn't seen anywhere else is that the built-in angle of the 4K is their wide-angle fisheye type GoPro footage angle, which I thought, it doesn't really explain that that's what it's going to be. And I thought built in, because on the ad it says you can go ahead and switch that perspective to a typical flat line regular camera view, but that flat line view only works in 1080p or less. Like the 4K, it can't process fast enough to give you the full on wide view, which you would need for filming events, because I can't mix footage from my GH4 with the fisheye type angle perspective of the GoPro. It would be noticeable. So I need to figure out if I can go ahead and clean that up. Apparently the program that came with it has that cleaned up in it, and you can go ahead and figure that out and automatically do it. But whenever I tested it on the Hero 5 or whatever, nothing happened when I clicked correct that inside my computer. So I don't think that they actually updated the program, which scares me as a company that stock is falling. That scares me when they can't have their software updated in a timely manner. Okay, now on to talk about the GoPro software. All right, now normally I have some other cameras and things set up. Whenever you go ahead and plug those into your computer just reads it like an external drive. That's not true with the GoPro. It doesn't look like the connector, at least when I use mine, is an actual USB connector that you normally would use with like your cell phone. So if you have an Android phone, you plug that into your computer, it goes ahead and opens it up, and you can copy files back and forth. So if you have a ringtone that you made, or like an MP3 file you want to load as a ringtone, you can copy that directly onto your phone. Now with the GoPro, that doesn't happen. So they give you a couple different GoPro software programs. One of them is called Quick. I think it's Quick, Q-U-I-K, I think, or Q-U-I-C-K, I don't know. It opens up, and that is the program that actually reads the content on your GoPro. So that content is read to the program. So whenever you open it up, if your GoPro is not updated, like mine wasn't, obviously, whenever you first buy it, it had trouble reading it. So it took me a good 5 hours to get both the Quick program updated, because even though I downloaded it from the GoPro site, there was still another update that was available. And then I had to update my GoPro twice, because at first I installed the program thinking, okay, this is up to date. So then I run the install on my GoPro. It says something like, the requested firmware upgrade cannot be installed successfully. Please download the program and try again. Well, when I went back, it said shut down or something, I don't know what it said to do. Like, I shut down the GoPro and then reopened it up like it told me. Whatever the steps were that it told me to do is what I did. Well, whenever I did that, then the Quick program said, well, we have an update too. So then I updated that first, thinking that might have been what caused this failed update on the GoPro. So whenever I updated the program, plugged back in my GoPro, then that had to update before finally it could go ahead and read the files. Now, what happened was, once those updates were completed, I did have some test video footage, which luckily was just me that one of me driving around that I talked about. Luckily, that was the only footage that I had on the card, because it wouldn't access it after I did the updates. It took me a while. I was able to take the card out and copy the file directly onto my computer, but the GoPro program would not read it. So then I had to re-import, and I got a bigger file or SD card. So I formatted that, and then now that they're both up to date, I haven't had any problems. But that initial thing is a pain. And the fact that it uses a micro SD card, which I know they probably did for space, is also a pain if the connector doesn't work. I don't mind having a cable sit in my desk that I can pull out whenever I want to go ahead and transfer data to my laptop. But what sucks is if I'm traveling and I have that cable in my bag, now I have to carry around a micro SD card possibly. So I have to carry around both because the cable doesn't work.
And like I said, it's a non-standard cable, which you have to carry anyway to charge it. So I'm going to have the cable on me. I don't want to have to pop out, like reach in and pop out a micro SD card just to get my content off. To me, that's frustrating. Then, like I said, they have another program. It's like GoPro editing software or something. Well, that one you go ahead and you install, and that's the one that's going to let you take out the fisheye lens view. So, of course, I go in, try to take out the fisheye view. Does not work. Doesn't work. I read online that it's not compatible with the Hero 5. Well, this Hero 5 that I got came out in October. So it's about 6 months that they should have had some type of update to their software. And like I said before, I know it goes down to stock options. Everything's a business in the world. You'll learn if once you're out in the real world. Everything is a business. So you go ahead and they have their own issues with the drones not working, and their stock's been dropping. So it makes sense that they don't have the manpower. I guess they had to lay a bunch of people off to update their software. But that gives me pause, and that scares me. Because, like, what support am I going to get whenever I have this? I don't know. That's what had me worried. But I went ahead and got it anyway. The stabilizer said that it updated when I plugged it in the quick too. So then whenever I got the stabilizer on, after I got the GoPro up to date, I decided, we'll plug the stabilizer directly into the computer. Let's make sure I can transfer like this, and it should charge both. Well, if you charge it from your computer, it takes forever to charge. I don't know if it's simultaneously charging the GoPro itself or what the issue is, but it takes forever to get both of them charged overnight. Whenever I just plugged the stabilizer in or the GoPro separately, they were much, much faster. So I think it has something to do with them charging each other simultaneously. I don't know. Maybe the GoPro automatically turns on. I haven't got to the bottom of it. But that is what I will say. That kind of stinks. And I guess I wish... Well, I don't know. I wish that the handle didn't charge the GoPro. Because I think with the handle, when it charges the GoPro... I'm pretty sure it charges the GoPro. Because my GoPro itself hasn't dropped below 100% when I use it. And that makes me think that it's charging the GoPro actively. Maybe they couldn't turn that off or something. But I don't know. I wish that it didn't. Because then I think I would get longer battery life out of the Karma stabilizer. And I think that the longer battery life is better anyway, because I think for the GoPro itself, you can have 4 hours or so. Plus, you can swap the battery out of the GoPro. So if the stabilizer, like if I'm traveling, I would rather carry 2 GoPro batteries than have the stabilizer automatically charge. Now, I haven't put it through the ringer. What I would like to see is I always have an external battery that I carry with me to charge my phone. And I wonder if I could do the same thing with the stabilizer. Can I charge the stabilizer while I'm walking around a park? And those are things I'll probably touch base on once I get some more field view on. But that's really what I wanted to talk about this week on the podcast. I'm not going to go too much longer. I have been playing some video games. And so what I might do is I've been getting into the groove of talking tech, live concerts, music. So I think what I'm going to do is take the podcast and talk 2 topics. And that's how I'm going to name the podcast. So my podcast names are going to be, like this week will be GoPro and whatever I want to call it. And the Karma grip stabilizer, whatever, the 2 things. In the future, what I'm going to do is have one tech thing, because I want to have the title in there so people can draw it in. And this one's going to be like I said, one of the things that I want. But I want to have one tech thing, or something that's trending, or like some music festival, so like the Carolina Rebellion or whatever. If I go there again, that's going to be one of them. And then what I want the second part to be, the second title, and some video game. So what I've been playing is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and I finished the story. It was pretty good. It had me hooked in after Assassin's Creed 2. I think that's where I left off. I talked Assassin's Creed, and so I'm going to be diving into these, and I'll probably call it like the Ezio trilogy or whatever they sell it as now. So I talked the first game, a lot of running around, it was a lot of boring. So I watched the movie, it ties in with that, and at that point I had already beat the second game, so I knew about the Apple of Eden, which is basically what the game's about. It's about Adam and Eve. They have the apple, it wasn't really just an apple. It's a symbolic apple, something that like gives you, it's like technology or something, so it gives you like unwielding power. It's not just that they ate an apple from the tree, it's that the tree was technology from the future or the past, however you want to look at it. So you know how people always say, well, I wonder how they built the pyramids. It couldn't have just been dudes like, because the way they're shaped as a triangle, it would have been really hard to get that block up. Maybe they had like cranes and stuff to lift it, but they didn't have that technology. So people always assume that there was an ancient technology back in the day. Same with the civilization of Atlantis that went under. Now, Assassin's Creed builds on that, and they're using that as the apple of Eden or whatever that gave them unwilling knowledge or unwitting knowledge. So whenever they got it, they didn't just realize that they were human and they were naked or whatever the story is from the Bible. They realized that they have unlimited power. And then that goes ahead and blows everything up in the earth. And then it starts to struggle for the power as two sides form. And you're an assassin, you're on the one side. And then the other side is kind of like the Templars. If you think of it's based on like the Holy War, where the assassins were sort of like the Middle Eastern people. I guess they would have been Muslims probably. I'm not really sure. I haven't dug real into the Holy War. And then the other side would be like the Christians. They're the Templars, which I think is a real name for them. I'm not really sure. I haven't dug too much into like the historical side of what it's based on as I played the game. But I've just been watching their story. I think it's interesting. So you're a guy from the future. I think I talked about it before. You go back in the past and you are looking for these pieces of power that were passed down by like ancient civilizations. So someone else had learned about technology years ago. They died. Something happened to their civilization. They're gone. They're no longer on Earth, but they left some relics, sort of like these lost civilizations that everyone knows about. Think like the 7 wonders of the world or whatever, even like Stonehenge. How did they build the stones on top of that? Using some old type of technology, these things got done. And now in this, you're the first one was kind of like learning a little bit about the history. There wasn't really much backstory. You learned that you were in the future. You were going back in time to relive these ancient things that happened during the Holy Wars, these events, to get this apple, to get this power. And then you realize that there was a fight between good and evil. And then I think the game ends where you're like breaking out of the modern day memory tube. What do they call it? They have a name for it. I can't think of it right now. Of course, as I'm podcasting, I don't have it in my notes. But they have just some type of, it's called the Animus. So it's taking you in the Animus, and that's throwing your memories back in time. And you're living through an ancestor, so you have to be of a certain bloodline. So I guess most of the people in the world are oblivious that this is happening. But people from these other two bloodlines from the Holy Wars are actually fighting each other across the country over these hidden relics that give you power. And so then what happens in the second one is you kind of start off like that. You're the same current character. So like you're the same real world character. Then you go back in time. The first guy you played was Alatar. He lived in the Holy Wars. He lived during the Crusades. And now you are going to play, when you go back in the Animus, you're going to be his son or grandson or someone along the lines called Ezio. And he's an Italian dude. So you're playing all through Italy against, like, fighting against the Vatican, I guess, the Catholic Church or the Pope. I think the Pope was in there, or the Bishop. I can't remember. But you're fighting them. They have the power inside one of the Sistine Chapels or whatever they're called. So you have that. And that's where you're going to get your pieces. So you're basically fighting all around Italy, trying to get knowledge and get them back. That's the best way I can explain it for a podcast. Kind of odd. But I played the first one. I played the second one. Now the second story, again, like I said, you're in Italy this time. It was a much better game. There were things that you could play through. There was like hidden memories where you could learn more about like the Adam and Eve part of the apple inside the game. And some of the quests, like loading stuff up, yeah, it's good to invest some time in a game to restore some of these ancient buildings, get them up, and because you have banks, and the banks collect money as you free up some of these businesses. And they have like hookers and stuff that you can go ahead and purchase, brothels. What are some other ones? Like assassins, thief guilds. And as you build them up, then money comes into your pocket, and then you can buy new equipment, which helps you fly through the game. Now, in this trilogy, basically all 3 games have been the same. And I understand why people might say, like, well, this one's good, this one's bad, whatever. In the Brotherhood one, you can actually have thieves that you free on the map. They like get in trouble with the law. Well, you can go ahead and work with them. And as you work with them, they join your team. And once they're on your team, then you have them at your disposal. So if you're in a battle and there's like 10 guys you're fighting, you can just go ahead and call an assassin, and they will come in and fight for you. It's a pretty helpful mechanism. And as I played through, so the first games I played through were the 2D side-scrollers called Chronicles that came out last year or 2 years ago. And so now in the 3D world, like I haven't experienced anything like that, but it does help you get through. If you build up a good army of assassins, if you get stuck in the game, you can just call them 3 or 4 times. If some of your assassins die, you have to spend time recruiting more. But it does help you in the game, so you're not fighting an onslaught of like 10 guys. In the first Assassin's Creed, that was what was frustrating to me. You had like 10 guys always swarming you after a point. They also threw in a thing where you can, once you're wanted, they post posters of you around the buildings, around the town, like showing you that you're wanted, and then guards recognize you. Well, you can rip those down in the game, which means that guards won't recognize you, which is a huge help. Because at the end of Assassin's Creed 1, I don't know if it was just because I was flying through and fighting everyone, but everyone chased me. It took forever for me to become anonymous. Like I would have to hide in haystacks for minutes before I could accomplish like the end of the game tasks. But that's it for this week. I'm going to get back into that next week. I'll probably talk about Assassin's Creed for a few weeks here as I try to beat the rest of them. They are longer games, so I can't beat one a week, to be honest. But I think I have enough. I'm a couple ahead, and I can dig into Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and stuff. But we'll leave it at that. Talk a little bit about it at the end of this one. But we'll come back with that next week, maybe get a little bit more into depth, and I can kind of break down which ones I've beaten. Maybe I'll spend a whole week on video games because I haven't got to it. But you've been listening to the Socially Numb Podcast. I'm your host, Richie Leahey.